Isn't it just a great day to be here together, to see Denny Schulstead and all our veteran friends here? It's so wonderful to be here with each and every one of you. This is an annual event we have every year. We do it at different places. Luckily, we're here at Edina, at the Edina Country Club today to celebrate this very wonderful event, Veterans Day. So this is an Area 3 event, and I want each of the presidents, that when I call out your president's name and your club's name, shout as loud as you can. You know, we want every club to see who can be the loudest. And I know, I didn't grow up here in Edina, but I know everyone likes to beat Edina. That's like a theme. So, so all you other clubs that aren't Edina, yell as loud as you can when we call your clubs. So first, Bloomington Noon and President Jamie. That's going to be hard to beat. Eden Prairie AM, President Jennifer. That's right, it's a great club. Irene, I didn't hear you yelling. Eden Prairie Noon, President Sam. Okay. And Edina, President Michael Stanzik. You are under the Air Force. You shouldn't be doing that with your hands. And the Minnesota Veterans Club, President Jeff. Well, it's hard to know who's the winner there. But yes, Edina Morningside, President Steve May. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you. So we are honored to have an MC here today.
Yeah, if you want to say his name and then I'll fill in.
Okay. And Joe Hayes is. Joe, are you going to do the introduction?
Joe Hayes. Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. We have Joe Hayes, President-elect Joe Hayes is going to do the introduction of our speaker.
Well, we're delighted to have Tom Hauser. Welcome, Tom. Favorite son of Edina? In a moment. You're right here. You're over here. We're delighted to have journalist Tom Hauser from KSTP as our MC today. Tom has been a reporter for KSTP, Channel 5, since 1992, has been on the political reporter since 1997. Tom's considered Minnesota the best political beat in the country. Tom has earned Emmys, awards as news reporter, and inducted in the Silver Circle of National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences for significant contributions to television industry over 25 years. Tom was born in Minneapolis, grew up in Edina, graduating from Edina West. Go Cougars. Tom, that's hard for me to say, being a Hornet. Tom received a bachelor's degree in journalism, political science from the University of St. Thomas. Any Tommies here? Okay. And has a master's degree in journalism and mass communication from Drake University. Tom is an avid runner and has completed 31 marathons and lives in Chanhassen with his wife and 4 children. Please welcome our MC, Tom Hauser.
And the 4 children and the 31 marathons go together. There was a reason why I was out running 31 marathons. Just did the Boston Marathon 4 weeks ago, Monday, I think it was, so for the first time. And lived to tell about it, but just barely. I apologize for coming in hot like I did, but I just left another Veterans Day program I emceed at Blaine High School, and boy, did they do a job there. It was unbelievable. The young people who were involved, and they got to see a 99-year-old woman who was a veteran and a code breaker back during World War II, and then Stan Nelson, 101 years old, and he was in the Normandy invasion. I mean, it was just, so it was great for these young people to see that, and it's great for all of you young people to be here today. Of course, Veterans Day is the day our nation designates to honor the men and women who have served in our military services. Veterans Day recognizes the many sacrifices that have been made to protect our nation and to promote freedom. And I just want to take a moment to remember the members of my own family who have served, including my dad, who was in the Air Force, and a couple of uncles who were in the Navy, one who was a naval aviator who gave his life for his country at the age of 22 in September of 1963 when his plane went down over the South China Sea on a reconnaissance mission. Never found the plane, never found him. And I remember how deeply that impacted my mom, who raised all of her 8 kids here in Edina. She never got over that. It was a very difficult time, but again, an example of the sacrifices the members of our military make for us. Though the day is set aside to honor veterans, it's important to keep the men and women who are currently serving in our military all over the world in our thoughts and prayers. As you know, we owe our soldiers, past and present, a sincere debt of gratitude. They truly embody the Rotary motto of service above self. Please join me now in standing for the presentation of the colors by the Emergency Medical Services Honor Guard, formed in 2002 to honor fallen EMS providers in the state of Minnesota.
Right, please. Quick fire. Oh. Freeze, and boom. And that was the Rotary Brass Quintet under the direction of Mary Brindle, past president of the Edina Morningside Rotary Club. Thank you again for that wonderful rendition of the national anthem. At this time, I invite Pastor Mark Shockey of the Minnesota Veterans Rotary Club to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, the four-way test, and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Four-way test is very important for Rotarians. I invite you to speak these as you know it. You can find the words in the program. Of the things we think, say, or do, one Is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned. You may be seated. In 1926, Congress designated that this would be a day that would be celebrated in the following way. Whereas, as it is fitting that the recurring anniversary of this date should be commemorated with thanksgiving and prayer and exercises designated to perpetuate peace through goodwill and mutual understanding between nations. So in that light, I invite you to join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you today for all the men and women who have served in our armed forces. We're grateful for their dedication, their discipline, their faithfulness, and their courage. From them, we learn the virtues of selfless service and loyalty to country, the disciplines of teamwork and the good of all, and obedience to authority and perseverance in difficult and challenging situations. But yet behind these veterans are those family members who have been supported all the while from a distance. We ask your blessing upon the families of our veterans as well. We ask that you would give each of our veterans meaningful employment and opportunities where they can enrich our workplaces and communities through their strong leadership skills and their self-discipline and their hearts for service. We pray that you would provide your care and healing power to our veterans who still bear scars that they endured serving our country, physical and mental wounds from their days of service. And we lift up to your care those families who've lost a member in the armed forces in the line of duty. May your constant presence and help be theirs. We pray that you would keep our servicemen and women strong and determined. And as we thank you for them, we ask your presence as we gather today, giving thanks for your provision and the peace that we enjoy in this free land. You are, Lord, our peace and strength all our lives. Amen. Well, indeed, may God bless America. I am a representative of our new Rotary Club of Minnesota Veterans, and a shameless plug, of course, is if you are a veteran who's here as a guest, we've got a great home for you, and there's just a little brochure on your table mentioning that. Now, we invite you to enjoy lunch as it is served, and the program will continue shortly.
Well, I hope that you're all enjoying your lunch, and of course, you can continue to eat while we continue the program. We'll make sure we're respectful of everybody's time today. Let's have a round of applause for all the wait staff and the people who prepared our wonderful meal today. And again, you can continue enjoying your meal while the program continues. Now, at this time, I would like to take just a couple of minutes to recognize several people who are with us today. And please either stand or just raise your hand if you're too full from lunch when I recognize you. We have with us today several Rotary District 5950 dignitaries. Past President Tom Gump. A number of other past district governors are also with us today. Would they please stand and be recognized? You know who you are. There you go. and Area 3 Assistant Governor Kim Ross. And among other guests today are several elected officials, Mayor Jim Hovland of Edina, there's the mayor. He and I agreed earlier that we saved the Edina Theater by doing a story a few months ago, and so we're willing to take credit for that, are we not? Mayor Tim Bussey of Bloomington. Mayor Ron Case of Eden Prairie. State Senator Steve Swedzinski representing Eden Prairie. State Representative Carly Katiza Watoon representing Eden Prairie. And State Representative Lori Pryor representing Eden Prairie and Minnetonka. And of course, we're also thrilled to have the opportunity to honor those members of the armed services, both active and retired, who have joined us today. Would they please stand and be honored? And in particular, we'd like to recognize World War II veteran Gordy Lewis and any other World War II vets who might be here. But Gordy Lewis, there's Gordy right there. Absolutely the greatest generation. And General Denny Schulstead. We can share one quick political joke. We were talking earlier about how I covered him when he was on the Minneapolis City Council as the last Republican / independent / non-Democrat. And he said, yeah, back then they said I was an endangered species. Now I'm extinct. So, but we're glad he's here to join us today. Always good to see him. Now at this time, the Rotary Brass will perform a medley of the service anthems as a tribute to our veterans. And I gotta tell you, I always get goosebumps and tears in my eyes at the same time when I hear these, as I did this morning at Blaine High School. So if you are a veteran or active military, please stand while the anthem of your service branch is played. Now, of course, when our military is deployed overseas, their safety and success is supported by their families and allies at home. If you are a family member of a current service member or a veteran, the veterans have stood enough. I don't think we need to have them get up. If you're a family member of a current service member or a veteran, please rise. We appreciate your service and sacrifice. And today we also have a special honor. We are joined by 12 men who bravely served alongside our forces in Afghanistan as interpreters. They are seated among and hosted by members of the Bloomington Noon Rotary Club. They are back over in that corner. They include some of our newest Minnesotans who, together with their family members, evacuated Kabul in August. For these resettling families and others expected to resettle here, their needs are great. If you are interested in supporting them, please reach out to Ahmed Shah or the Minnesota Veterans Club member Bob Keller. Shah and Bob, please stand so folks know who to contact. Right back there. And let's have a round of applause for all of the interpreters and our allies from Afghanistan. Gentlemen, it's an honor to have you here, and our best to you and your families. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Josh Geysey. Sergeant First Class Geysey joined the Army in 1989. He has served in every position in an infantry line company from rifleman to company first sergeant. He has served in the regular Army, the California Army National Guard, and joined the Minnesota Army National Guard in May of 2008. Geysey has deployed multiple times in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation New Dawn. Currently, Sergeant First Class Geysey is the course manager of Maneuver Senior Leader Course and Master Infantry Instructor at the 175th Regional Training Institute at Camp Ripley here in Minnesota. Geysey is a Master Resiliency Instructor and Suicide Intervention Officer. His list of awards include the Bronze Star, Combat Infantryman's Badge, Operation Iraqi Freedom Medal with 3 campaign stars, Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, Medal with Campaign Star, Global War on Terror Expeditionary Medal, and Army Commendation Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters. On the civilian side, Josh is a registered nurse. He has worked as a nurse preceptor and charge nurse on post-surgical recovery units. He is currently pursuing his Master's of Science in Nursing, apparently in his spare time, with a focus in leadership. Josh is or has been involved in several veterans' mental health groups and initiatives. He also serves as the Director of Military Affairs and sits on the Military Advisor Board for the Duke Cannon Supply Company. Duke Cannon is a Minnesota-based company that delivers premium men's grooming products and gives back significantly to the military community. And now it is my great pleasure to bring to the podium Josh Geysey.
So I've done these presentations multiple times, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I sound much better on paper than I am in real life. I promise you, my 3 daughters would have a very different explanation and definition of who I am and what it is that I do. I'd like to thank you for having me here today. I'd like to thank all the veterans that are here today. I'd like to thank all the veteran families that are here today. I'm often asked, why do people serve? Why do veterans serve? Or why do members of the armed forces serve? And the answer to that is as varied as people are. Some people serve because they're patriotic. Some people serve because they want to join something and contribute to something that's greater than they are. Some people serve because they're trying to find themselves. They're trying to find a home. They're trying to find a family. So those answers are varied individual to individual. But what people don't join the military for is to become wealthy. Recently, a quarterback of a football team in the state next door to us was fined close to $15,000 US for being disingenuous about some information. Keep in mind that a private serving in combat would take 6 months to earn that kind of money. So nobody joins to become wealthy. Nobody joins to become famous. We were sitting here at this table talking about Twitter. I promise you that there's millions and millions of Americans that can tell you what the latest TikTok trend is, what the latest trend is on YouTube, who it is that the Kardashian is dating. But they can't tell you who's the only living member to receive the Medal of Honor in Iraq. They can't tell you his story. They haven't watched his YouTube video, which to me is one of the most amazing speeches I've ever heard given in my entire life. As I'm going through this presentation and as we're talking about things in this presentation, I want you to keep in mind that I'm talking specifically about the veteran. But understand that these issues affect more than just the veteran. These issues are going to go ahead and affect the families surrounding the veteran, the DoD civilians and the contractors that served alongside of the veteran, the Afghan interpreters over here. All these issues are going to affect them because they were there as well. But I'm going to speak directly to the veteran because that's what I understand. And if you have never been to Afghanistan, let me tell you, it is one of the most amazingly beautiful countries I've ever experienced. I would enjoy nothing more in life to be able to find peace there and to be able to go there and do some overland camping in the Hindu Kush. If you're a foodie and you haven't had burnai, and correct me if I pronounce that wrong, which is an eggplant dish that the Persians created, that the Afghans refined. Persians serve it cold, they serve it hot. It is one of the best pieces of food I've ever eaten in my entire life. So thank you very much for your service. Go ahead, next slide. Abraham Lincoln gave this address at the end of Gettysburg. And in that conversation at Gettysburg, he made a point to identify the fact that we as a nation owed it to those who bore battle, their widows and their orphans, to take care of them. At the end of the Civil War, there was over 2.1 million veterans in the United States. That comment right there is what launched the Veterans Affairs. It's because of that that the Veterans Affairs exists. Now, I've given a presentation before here, and most of my talking about veterans issues revolves around mental health. So when Joe reached out to me and asked me to come here today, he asked me to kind of talk about some different issues that are affecting veterans and some of the things that, as a service organization, you can do to help those veterans. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about 3 different issues that affect veterans, and you're going to see by the end of it how they all tie in together. And I'm also going to provide you some options and some ways that you can help those veterans as we go through this. Go ahead, next slide, please. The number one issue that we're going to talk about today is veteran homelessness. As you look at veterans homelessness, the numbers are staggering. Veterans account for 6% of the population, roughly. Now, depending upon the numbers that you look at, 8% is the lowest percentage, up to 11% of the overall population of homeless are veterans. 90% of those are males. If you take it as a group of 10,000 veterans, 21 out of every 10,000 is homeless. If you look at it from the perspective of Pacific Islanders, Native peoples, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, that number goes up to 106 out of every 10,000 is homeless. The number one leading cause of a woman to become homeless, the number one thing that ties her, or that she has in common with other homeless women, is she's a veteran. Now, the reasons for the homelessness are varied. But they do have a common theme. Again, 50% of all veteran homeless have some sort of mental health issue. They struggle to find work. They can't find work because of either injuries that they sustained, or they don't have people at home to support them and carry them through those injuries. And we're going to talk about veterans' work coming up here as we move on. Now, there's two organizations within the state of Minnesota that I can tell you about immediately off the top of my head. First off is Minnesota First, or Homes First, which is a Minnesota organization that provides homes not only for veterans, but for many homeless people in the community. And that's an organization that doesn't just require money to be donated to it. They also look for material. Can you donate material? Or can you just swing a hammer? They're happy to have any of that. There's other organizations out there that do the same thing, that are just looking for manpower. I had an interesting conversation with Mark about the same thing while we were sitting down here having lunch. There's numerous organizations out there that want to help, and it's not just about giving money. Sometimes it's about giving your expertise. There's MACV, which for the Vietnam vets in the room, that's not the Special Forces dudes running around Vietnam. That's a Minnesota alliance that's dedicated specifically to helping veteran homelessness. And there's other organizations within the state of Minnesota to help veterans in their homeless struggle. 11,000 veterans are homeless in the state of California. Minnesota is far ahead of that curve. We have roughly 315 homeless vets in the state of Minnesota. And there is hope in this area as well. Between 2010 and 2019, overall in the United States, we went from 74,000 homeless vets to 37,000 homeless vets. So if we were able to do that in a 9-year span, there is no reason why over the next decade we can't overcome veteran homelessness. It is achievable, it is doable. We just have to focus the resources in the right place to accomplish that. Next slide. Next, I'm going to talk about veteran suicide. And I don't put this second because it's the second least important issue. I put this second because it is the core and it's the common theme running throughout veteran issues. Veteran mental health. As I told you at the beginning of this, nobody joins the military to get rich. Nobody joins the military to become famous. All the military promises you is if you're left behind, we will come find you. And if we break you, we will do everything in our ability to fix you. This issue is near and dear to my heart because I have struggled myself with mental health. My story, in a nutshell, is I was born and raised in San Francisco. Born and raised in a very progressive hippie family, right? My middle name is Rain, like it's raining outside. So, as I said, when I was a little kid, I separated the stems and the seeds in my parents' marijuana box. That's kind of the environment that I grew up in San Francisco. We danced naked with the Hare Krishnas in Golden Gate Park, all right? And my parents taught me empathy. They taught me to be empathetic towards people. And they taught me that America is the greatest country on earth because you can be who you want to be and nobody can tell you can't do that. So when I grew up, right, I did what every great hippie kid did. I joined the military. So and then I say it sounds a little counterintuitive to people who say that, but I think I'm the ultimate hippie because I believe so much in your ability to be who you want to be and do the things that you want to do that I'm willing to fight and die for that right. So I went through my life. I went through the military. President Clinton got on TV one day and said that there was no more dragons left to slay, got out of the military, and then one morning I woke up and the world changed. I found myself back in the military. I found working in corporate America held no value to me anymore. Pushing paperwork held no value. So I wound up back in the military, and I found myself deployed. And I was absolutely 100% trained to go forward in combat. The military had spent years and tens of thousands of dollars to train me to go forward in combat, and I went forward in combat. Well, I'm here to tell you that combat is not like what they show in the movies, and it is not like what they show in a training environment. Besides empathy, my dad told me that John Wayne was the greatest actor on the face of the earth. So every Sunday morning, we watched John Wayne movies. So I knew everything there was to know about combat. The Army didn't teach me it, John Wayne did. Well, then you come back from combat and you realize that John Wayne was wrong. Nobody ever got shot and said, "Oh, they got me, Sarge, keep going." So you find yourself back in the United States, and you find yourself trying to jive who you were before with who you are now. this hippie kid from San Francisco versus this infantryman coming back from Iraq. And those two pieces don't jive. And a spiral that began that you were unaware of in Iraq continues to spiral. Your relationships are failing. Things aren't working for you. And that spiral continues. People around you are looking at you that you're different. You act differently. Well, yeah, no kidding. Who could be in that environment and not have them affect them on some level? Then they tell you, we just got to talk about it. And then you talk about it. You share that story with somebody. And the abject horror in their face when you share that story confirms in your head that you are indeed a monster. And that spiral continues. And then if you're me, one night at 11 o'clock at night, sitting in my Jeep, decided I'd had enough. Death held no mystery to me anymore. I wasn't afraid of death. I'd gotten more time than some of my friends. I was done. I came up with a plan. Next morning, I was going to go get a hotel room. I was going to get gas. I was going to fill the bathroom with gas. I'd go to sleep and never wake up. It's painless and guaranteed. I put a note on the door so the cleaning lady didn't have to open the door and find me. Now, fortunately, in my circumstance, I was surrounded by people who noticed the signs. They noticed the symptoms. They knew something wasn't right, and they took action against that. They called me up. I wound up meeting them for breakfast. They got me in their car under auspices of doing something different. And next thing I know, we're bombing up the road at 70 miles an hour up Highway 52 from Rochester, heading towards the VA in Minneapolis. Now, I wasn't well, but I certainly wasn't going to throw myself out of a moving car unwell. And mostly because that wasn't guaranteed and it was going to be painful. Wind up at the VA, they asked me a series of questions and say, hey, are you willing to spend the night? Absolutely willing to spend the night. Okay. And this nurse stands up to about here, about my waist, maybe 100 pounds after they get out of the shower, comes up to me and says, hi, I'm nurse so-and-so. I'm going to take you to 1K, the unit you're going to be spending the night on. Okay, so I'm following this nurse. And right as we're about to bend this corner to get to 1K at the Minneapolis VA, she turns and looks at me and says, they did tell you that this is a locked psych facility, correct? No, as a matter of fact, they didn't. And as I look back upon it now with clearer head, I think she felt like she had to say that because at 6'3", 225 pounds, she wasn't going to get me through that door if I started to fight through going through that door. Fortunately, I went through that door. Ultimately, I wound up spending a week at the VA in a locked psych facility. And at this point, I normally like to throw this out there. Yeah, I spent a week at a locked psych facility, but I do have discharge paperwork from a psych facility that says I'm sane. If you don't have the same paperwork, you need to question yourself. Ultimately, I was diagnosed with PTSD, major depressive disorder, single episode. And I wound up spending 19 weeks at the VA. And I was surrounded by people in the military that took care of me. That their only mission, they told me my only mission in life was to get well. That is not always the case for people's experiences in the military. I was lucky when it came to that. Veterans' mental health is an important issue. Statistics will prove that people seeking treatment at the VA estimates 6.4 veterans take their life that are receiving treatment at the VA. That number goes up to 10.8 per day of veterans who are not getting treatment at the VA. The National Association of Mental Illness, they have tons of programs that are out there, tons of programs. The VA has tons of programs, things that you can do to influence that. You can find a program that you can contribute to. You can demand when you vote and spend your money giving to people that are running for political office to those people that are demanding reform at the VA or greater involvement of the VA in veterans' lives. Again, no vet joined to become wealthy. Next slide. Next, let's talk about veteran unemployment. Veteran unemployment ties directly into homelessness, and the reason why veterans are often unemployed is because they struggle with mental health issues. They're struggling with mental health issues, which makes it more difficult for them to interview, and also makes it more difficult as an employer to retain them as an employee. Additionally, a veteran struggles to put what it is that they did in the military in writing in a way a civilian person will understand. My job in the Army as an infantryman is to locate, fix, close with, and destroy the enemy in close combat by the use of fire and maneuver. There's not a lot of jobs on the civilian side that corresponds very well to. It's just not there. But there are things out there, there are organizations out there that if you're an employer, that will help you to hire veterans. The unemployment rate in the veteran community for veterans under 30% disability rate is around 6%. It's often not that these people don't want to work. It's, again, they either have that underlying mental health issue or they have some sort of physical impairment that makes it hard for them to work, or they don't have the family at home to support them through that. Things that you can do. The Department of Labor, the U.S. Federal Department of Labor, they have tons of programs to help you hire vets. The Minnesota Veterans Association, Minnesota has its own department for Veterans Affairs. They will help you hire vets. These organizations will give you money to hire vets. They'll give you grant money to hire vets. So not only can you hire a quality individual, you can hire somebody who's given back and who has sacrificed for you, but the government will pay you to do that. All you have to do is reach out to those organizations. If you're an employer and you want to hire vets, maybe you struggle to understand what it is that the vets are telling you on their resume or when they come to interview. Bring a vet into the interview with you so they can translate that. They can tell you what that means. If you're an employer, I have a very good friend who struggles significantly through PTSD, and he finally worked out an agreement with his employer that his employer agreed, hey, if you're not feeling well, you need a day, just let me know. We'll give you that day without any ramifications, without any of that being marked down as you being attendance issues, things along those lines. But you have to figure out a way to work with the vets. And there's tons of programs out there. And those two programs, those two organizations that I listed, they're just the tip of the iceberg. Beyond the yellow ribbon, they'll tell you how to hire vets. They'll help you hire vets. There's tons of organizations out there. Next slide. The issues that we talked about aren't easy. The issues that we talked about today aren't easy for us as a society to deal with overall. But it wasn't easy for the 1st Minnesota at Gettysburg at Cemetery Ridge, where 300-odd Minnesotans pivoted and attacked 1,000 Alabamans who were trying to roll up the Union lines. The 1st Minnesota earned the motto that day, "To the last man," because the next morning only 48 could answer muster. 2 of the 135 Infantry in the Minnesota Army National Guard still has that motto today. It wasn't easy for the Marines at Ardennes, where units suffered 250% casualty rates. So what that means to you, at 250% casualty rates, that means everybody who went in initially was a casualty. All of their replacements were a casualty. And then the next 50% of those replacements were casualties as well. The troops who landed at the beaches of Normandy, the greatest amphibious assault in history, and no Marines. The greatest amphibious assault in history. That wasn't easy for them either. Speaking of Marines, we'd be remiss to not talk about Chosin Reservoir and the grit and determination that those Marines showed those days at Chosin. Hamburger Hill in Vietnam with the 101st Airborne. The battles of Fallujah in Iraq. The Battle of Kamdish or Kop Keating in Afghanistan, but where not one but 2 U.S. service members were awarded the Medal of Honor. Those days weren't easy for them either. We owe it to these people who joined to give back to every single person in this room that came home. Some of them injured, obviously, that you can see. Some of them injured in ways, as President Obama said, not all injuries are visible. We owe it to give back to them. President Abraham Lincoln identified it, that we owed it to give back to them, their widows, and their orphans. There is no easy button. There is no magic pill that we can make and have this all go away. We just have to put the work and effort into it. I didn't know this initially when I came up here, but again, I had the opportunity to sit here and talk to Mark about the Rotary Veterans Organization. And if you're looking for specific ways to give back to the veteran community and to help those veterans who have sacrificed so much, and even if they're not experiencing a mental health crisis, even if they're not experiencing loss of limb, I promise you they've given up. They've missed family events. They've missed holidays. They've missed watching their children make their first steps or say their first words, things that we take for granted. But talk to him. Talk to your fellow Rotarians? Yes, thank you. In the Veterans Club. They will help you. They will guide you in the right direction. And lastly, if you can't give any of these things, if you don't have the time to give, you don't have the expertise to give, if you don't have the money to give, that's fair. Just be a good human being. Be somebody that all those sacrifices were worthwhile. Be good to each other. We're all human beings. We're all on this crazy spaceship floating through Earth together. Be decent to each other. And if you take nothing away from what it is I just talked about up here, absolutely nothing, remember this. Go Army, beat Navy.
So we have a few minutes for any questions. Any questions?
I'm curious as to how you determine the homeless statistics, the numbers.
How do you determine the homeless statistic?
So I have my references listed up here, and there's multiple organizations that give different numbers. And so what I went with, the statistics that I went with, is I took sort of the average of all these different organizations, because the VA gives you one set of numbers, and then other homeless organizations give you slightly different numbers. And that's why I say the percentage number, everything that I saw ranged between 8 and 11% if we're talking veteran homeless versus the population. So those numbers will vary, and those numbers will vary year by year depending upon who's doing the numbers. So.
Any other questions?
I have one, since that's what I do for a living. Governor Walz yesterday and today has been touting the end to veteran homelessness in central Minnesota. How important is that? What kind of impact does that have, that they have eliminated homelessness in central Minnesota?
That's huge, right? And anytime that you can have a governor or a leading public official discussing a core issue when it's related to veterans or anybody for that, at a minimum, it lets the veteran know that they do care, that they are listening to the things that are going on. And if we can solve the homelessness issue in central Minnesota, we should be able to solve it pretty much anywhere. I'm not naive enough to know that you're never going to get 100% of the people. That would be an unrealistic goal. But we can reduce those numbers significantly. Again, Minnesota is all the way down to 315 homeless, rough estimation. And I believe that came from MACV is where that number came from.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, Joshua, thank you for coming to speak to us today. In our gratitude for sharing your thoughts today, the Rotary Club presents you today with sending a donation in your name to the Minnesota Military Appreciation Fund, which was founder right here, Denny Schulstead. General Denny. Rotary has 1.2 million community leaders in 165 countries who come together to create positive, lasting change in our community and around the world. And I want to thank you.
Thank you.
And appreciate your service. Great cause, great cause. In closing today's program, I'd like to recognize and thank those who have made it so special. There we go. Stop the tap. Recognize that thanks who made this event so special. And thanks again, Josh, for your inspiring presentation. Thanks as well to Tom Hauser for serving as our MC today. And I have a certificate for 35% off skate sharpening at Braemar. Valid till Thanksgiving. So, I'd also like to thank and to recognize the president-elects of the District 5950 Area 3 Rotary Clubs for their contributions to organizing this meeting. Please stand and be recognized. Brad, Debbie, all right, Greg. Good job, guys. There's a couple others who weren't able to make it today, but something for our president-elects in the future. This is something you get to work with your future other elected presidents. Finally, a thank you to all those attending the 2021 Rotary District 5950 Area 3 Luncheon. Please remember to acknowledge and thank all those who you meet along the way with their families who have served and sacrificed. Please stand as the EMS Color Guard retires the colors.
Breathe in. Home. Order. Home. Prepare. Cover. Feet. Oh, model. Wait. Forward. March.
Thank you, EMS Color Guard, for that great service there. Thank you to our veterans, special guests, Rotarians, and meeting adjourned.